Want to get a national perspective on this now. We go out to the 610 hotline and welcome in Ross Tucker, our Audacy NFL insider. You see, you hear him all over the place for CBS, Westwood One. Of course, the host of the Ross Tucker podcast, and our insider calls are presented by BetQL, where you can download the free BetQL app right now and get instant access to the industry's most advanced suite of sports betting tools right at your fingertips. The most important thing, Ross, tonight is what's going on in a suite at Arrowhead. You know the Swift family, so we know the family is going to meet each other, the parents of Kelsey and Swift tonight. How's that going to play?
Is that still going on? I didn't know. I thought I read something where Taylor couldn't make it or something.
She's not making it, but I didn't know if that meant if the parents aren't showing up.
That's kind of awkward, I feel like.
It'd be weird if she's not there. Yeah.
The parents meet without the kid being there?
Yeah, I'm with you. So you think the whole thing's off now?
I don't know. I specifically do not ask those questions.
Okay, so you're saying you won't ask Taylor's dad if he'll come on this show and just talk with us as friends?
1,000% no. He wouldn't do it anyway. But I never asked him to come on any of my shows. So,
fair enough.
So you wouldn't do the solid for us. That makes sense.
He doesn't really do media.
I don't blame him.
It's not really his thing.
When you look at the game tonight, actually on the field, one of the biggest matchups we think is the same thing in the Super Bowl. Whose offensive line holds up better against each other's defensive line? They both don't allow a heavy amount of sacks. They both rank well in getting sacks at the quarterback. Same thing as the Super Bowl, Ross. The Chiefs won that matchup then. Is that a big thing to watch tonight?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And I think for the second time, well, listen, it did feel like the Eagles had more problems with the footing than the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl. And, of course, that's not an excuse because the footing was the same for both teams. I don't know if the Chiefs had better cleats or whatever, but it certainly seemed like although I saw both teams flip around, but it seemed like, by the way, there are people out there, I'm sure you guys have seen it, there are people out there that charted. They watched the whole game and charted how much each team slipped. and yes, in fact, the Eagles slipped more than the Chiefs, which, I mean, that's hilarious to me on several levels. But I thought that was a factor. And I think the factor in this game, and I told you guys this before, is the crowd. I mean, I played 7 years, and I felt like Arrowhead was easily the loudest outdoor stadium I ever played. RCA Dome in Indy was really loud, but Arrowhead was so loud because I played there in 2003 in a night game, and in 2004 we played Seattle at Seattle, and I don't know, maybe it's because we beat them really bad or not. I don't know. We beat them. You guys have to look it up. I think we beat the Seahawks by like 20 points, but it wasn't that loud that day when we were beating their butts in. But Arrowhead for a night game, it was a Sunday night ESPN game in 2003, and it was just crazy loud. So that should be an advantage for the Chiefs pass rushers tonight, right? The Eagles will have to go with a silent cadence, and as a result, the tackles and the guards, they won't be able to hear the snap count from Hurts. And so really the Chiefs defensive linemen should be able to time it up just as well as those guys do. So that should be a slight admit. That's the advantage of playing at home, especially in a loud primetime game. I'll be curious to see how much of an impact that has.
Ross, we know Dallas Goedert missed time last year, but he was available for the Super Bowl. This go-around, not available tonight. I mean, of course it's a factor, but just how much do you think that impacts what the Eagles are going to try to accomplish tonight?
Well, so what's interesting to me about it is you can argue that probably other than Hurts, he's the guy that the Eagles can least afford to lose because of the fact that unlike a lot of these other positions, they just don't have a lot of depth behind him. I mean, they go from Goddard, who I believe is a top 5 tight end easily, to the guys behind them are just kind of guys, right? Like Jack Stoll's a blocker, former undrafted free agent. Calcaterra is a late-round pick who hasn't really done much. So there's like a huge drop-off for the Eagles when Goddard doesn't play. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is that last year, when that happened, they still found a way to move the ball pretty effectively. I think Dallas might have missed 4 games last year, and the offense still seemed to roll. They still seem to move the ball pretty effectively. So they just have to do it differently, where they lean on the running game, whether you don't see as many 2 tight end sets. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll come out more 3 receiver sets, more 4 receiver sets. Maybe they'll have Julio Jones run some of the routes that Dallas Goedert was running. But, when you look at the Eagles, what always impresses me the most about them, and by the way, I think Veach and the Chiefs are the same way, which is why I give them so much credit. Like, Veach signed Tranquil. He didn't have to do that. They didn't need Tranquil. He had Bolton. He had Willie Gay. But then you have an injury, and think about how valuable Tranquil's been with Bolton out, right? Like, he played really well. Agreed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, that's why the Chiefs are the Chiefs. And that's why the Eagles are the Eagles. Because they don't say, oh, we don't need them. We got to – no. There's going to be an injury. Make sure you have that next guy ready. And I would say for the most part, the Eagles do. Like, you look at most positions, you're feeling pretty good about the next guy up. I think tight end's probably an exception. There's a big drop-off from Goddard to those other guys.
We're talking to Ross Tucker, Audacy NFL Insider. While we're talking about health, I'll ask you, is Jalen Hurts healthy right now? Because they're not running the ball, it seems like, with him as much.
Well, so he definitely was not healthy the last few games. I don't know. I've seen some report, I guess, where they reported it was like a bone bruise on his knee or something. It's weird because he can still run at times, but then you'll see him, like, after the play, as he's walking back to the huddle, limp a little bit. Now, they haven't played in a while. They had to bye, and now they're playing on a Monday night. So I think we're going to find out at the same time tonight how much back he is and how much they have him run, because as you guys saw in the Super Bowl, that can be a major, major factor. I would also say this, though. This is not the Super Bowl, right? So I think even if he is healthy to run it a lot, I don't think they would run him a lot. I think they try to be somewhat judicious in how much they use him, because I just know that they want to make sure that he's okay for the playoffs and the rest of the season. Now, the Super Bowl was the last game, so they, we're going to do whatever it takes to try to win it. I don't know that they would run him that much tonight, even if he is healthy.
I'll ask you this question because we asked it of ourselves, which is, look, it's a bye week. Andy's really good out of the bye weeks, but this felt like more than it has in even years. They had a definitive problem they had to fix, and it was which wide receivers to go with, who to trust, and who to move on with. If there is a wide receiver you think capable of a better first or second half than first half, which wide receiver in the Chiefs do you think it is?
I mean, I think it's Rashee Rice. I mean, just the fact that he's already maybe been their best one, and he's only a rookie. These other guys, they could get better, but I think it's hard to make a really strong argument for how much better they could get, given the fact that they've been in the league for a while. But Rashee, only being a rookie and already doing some really positive things, he looks to me like a guy that has a chance to really take his game to that next level in the second half of this year and in subsequent years, right? As he gets more snaps under his belt, because he's already been really impressive as a rookie. It's interesting. This hasn't worked out. The Sky Moore thing just hasn't really worked out, right?
No, but they still give him opportunity, and he's telling Peter King he believes in Sky Moore. So we're kind of confused here about, is opportunity eventually going to lead to something, or are they just going to turn to a different wide receiver to see if they can get stats?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like if I, and I don't watch every snap of every Chiefs game, although it feels like I do, I still feel like he really trusts Watson, and I feel like Watson comes through most times for him. Like, I don't know, like if it was the last drive of the game, the only 2 guys I know I'd have out there for sure, I think, are Watson and Rashee Rice. The other guys probably be Valdez-Scantling. I haven't seen enough consistency from Tony or Sky Moore or McColl to have those guys out there for that drive.
So tonight's, a narrative shifting maybe game for both these teams, but whoever loses, suddenly nobody's going to think that they aren't capable of going to the Super Bowl or anything like that. But how do you think tonight does kind of shift how we are going to discuss each team going forward? I know the quarterbacks with the MVP race even has a big probably swing based off of tonight's result.
So that's what's interesting to me as well, because it's almost like unless one team really takes it to the other team, I mean, people in Philadelphia aren't happy with me, I guess. I do a Ross report on social media every morning at Ross Tucker NFL talking about the Eagles because I do their preseason games on TV and I do the pregame on the radio and blah, blah, blah. I picked the Chiefs to win 23-20. I mean, I think it'll be a field goal game. I don't think the Eagles are going to go 16-1. And this would be a game that they would lose, on the road, Monday night, off a bye, no Dallas Goedert. I mean, seems like a reasonable game for the Eagles to lose, but it won't change. Unless the Chiefs blow them away, if the game goes the way I envision it will, and it's 23-20, that the Chiefs win, it really won't change how I feel about either one of these teams at all.
Yeah, I also
Isn't
think
that weird. I mean,
no, I hear you. I think it's lower score too.
Sorry, I was going to say it affects them for home field advantage and all that stuff, and it matters. But it won't really change my perception of these teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm with you. The only thing in a positive way that could shift here in Kansas City would be, hey, out of the bye week, suddenly they unlock the wide receivers, right? And out of nowhere, all of a sudden, they got Sky Moore going, and this offense looks like what everybody thought it could be. That would be the only thing that I think all of a sudden on a positive end could shift out of this one for the Chiefs.
And then for the Eagles, just so you know what people are saying there, the two main concerns from the last couple games, they're not running as well as they were earlier in the year. And then the big one's the pass defense. And that's the other concern. I mean, they kind of got lit up by Sam Howell and Dak Prescott. It's kind of amazing. I mean, they still win the games, but they've had some secondary issues. Now, Bayard's been there a little bit longer now. Might be a little bit more comfortable. It sounds like they might get Bradley Roby back to play the nickelback spot. They had an undrafted rookie, Eli Ricks, and Sidney Brown, who's really more of a safety, rotating at that nickel spot. The other thing is just to see how they try to defend Kelsey tonight, because it seems like these teams that have been able to slow down Kelsey, they've really, really slowed down the Chiefs' offense. I mean, it's hard to believe they've only scored 23 points on offense the last two games. I mean, and Kelsey played. You got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and Kelsey's playing, and they scored 23 points? And that's stunning.
I guess on the flip side of that, defensively, obviously, this is why we've taken the trade-off here is, yes, it's stunning, and it's frustrating, but because they're going to have one of the league's best defenses, the Eagles were the league's best defense last year, without question. This year, they're 17th or 18th in points per game. They've taken the same flip the Chiefs have, but on one side of the ball. You mentioned the pass defense. Are they really that much worse as they are on paper from a defensive points allowed per game perspective? Or is this kind of like the Chiefs offense, where I know they're not the 13th worst offense, their best offense, they're probably the 8th best offense, which just feels like a lot here.
Yeah, I think the way you just described it is perfect. Absolutely perfect. The Eagles, I think they'll still have a pretty good defense by the time the season's over. They've just been so decimated by injury at safety and nickelback, losing their first couple, that I think they've tried different things. It's never really good for a defense when you're throwing different guys in there, right? I think they went 4 or 5 weeks in a row. I can't tell you the last time the Eagles had the same defensive backs out there 2 games in a row. That's not good. I mean, that's not what you're looking for. That's not ideal. And so they're trying to get some guys that can stay healthy, stay in the lineup, and get some consistency going there. Because I would say after O-line, defensive back communication is probably the most important for guys to be able to communicate with each other. And they haven't been able to have that with everything that's been going on with all these injuries. But I don't think they're 17th or 18th. I mean, I think they'll be top 10 they still have a really good defensive line. They get a lot of pressure. The edge guys, Sweat and Reddick, have been really good. This rookie, Jalen Carter, is kind of picked up where Javon Hargrave left off.
Ross Tucker, always good to have you on the show, man. 23-20 Chiefs, right? That's the pick?
That's what I'm going with, yeah. Which, I can't win either way, right? Like, even if I'm right, then Eagles fans are upset because they lose. And then if I'm wrong because the Eagles win, then they'll never let me hear the end of it. But when I make a prediction, like, I got to go by what I think is the most likely. Like, I think that's the most likely scenario,
sure.
Right? Like, if I had to bet, like, my kid's college fund, I would bet on the Chiefs to win a close game tonight.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's under. I think it's another primetime under. I think this one goes under the 45. I like your score for that.
I put my kid's college fund on Kadarius Toney's over tonight, Ross, at 5.5 yards.
It's 5.5 yards. Can you believe that? How low that is? It's crazy.
What is it?
5.5 yards is what it was when I bet it. I think it's 6.5 now.
He needs one catch.
That's it. In 7 snaps, they're giving him these days, though. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Ross, great to have you on the show, man.